All right.
Hi, and welcome to the transmission, once again, on our third episode, the ongoing trilogy that'll go forever and ever and ever.
Saga.
Yes.
Trilogy.
This is, of course, Katie Jade the Babe, and I am Echo the Pixie, and you're watching, again, the transmission, and tonight we're going to be talking... Oh, real quick, who were we just listening to?
We were just listening to Australian trans artist Thea Riley and her hit single, Good to Go, which we've sort of adopted as like our intro song right now.
It's gonna be the theme for the current season, as far as we goes, until we get more music from other trans artists.
That's right. If you're a trans artist out there who makes music and wants to get it on a program so other people listen to it, go ahead and send it to us. What's the email?
That email is, and it's very clear and it's very concise, it's giveustransmusic@gmail.com. It's giveustransmusic, all lowercase, all whatever, just one thing. And I just felt like that was, just give me your trans music at gmail.com. And yeah, just email us, send us a link or a attachment of the song, and we will use it until you tell us to stop, and then we'll pull it off and give it right back. It's not exclusive or anything like that. It's just to help promote each other and share each other's art.
And that's why we're here. Broadcasting once again to you from the heart of downtown Chico, California, from BCAC TV studios, and produced in part by Gigi McGee!
Heyo!
Gigi, how you doing tonight?
I'm feeling pretty solid. I think tonight's going to be a very solid show.
I do too. I'm excited. I was listening to the song beforehand, and it was sounding really good. Also, speaking of songs, we actually have another artist's song coming on. It'll be the song for the break tonight. It's going to be called Awakened. It's by a band that's from LA. It's called The Image You Claim. We got it from they were at, I believe it's the lead singer of that is Juniper Muse. And so she's on Twitter, and, you should look her up and see all the great things they do. And, yeah, if I get more information, I'll tell you more as it comes out. But that's another just great, they're kind of like more heavy sound we're going to hear tonight, so I'm really excited for that.
Definitely. Much more metal. It's kind of more the hardcore. I hear some kind of stuff in it, but honestly, really well done. It kicks some butt, so it's definitely my playlist now. I think you guys will enjoy it.
Yeah, so, for tonight, the topics we're going to be talking about is pretty much just going to be trans in general, the term, people inside that kind of terminology, the people in that community. We're also going to be talking about non-binary identities, and also just how the community has a lot of sub-communities in it, and it's kind of like, how do we have inclusivity and cohesion with people still having space to not get kind of overspoken by other voices and things like that. So that's pretty much what we're going to be talking about tonight in general. And so I'd like to kick it off typically with just this very loaded question. And as you're listening, you might hear us say certain things as we're talking through these steps. Mostly what we're saying is to highlight different opinions. It's probably not going to be what we personally think, just to be clear. It's kind of like that Socratic method of going through an idea with discussion. So first off, I'm just going to ask, in your opinion, Katie Jade the Babe, are non-binary people trans?
Well, absolutely. They're definitely underneath the transgender umbrella. I mean, it's part of the word, right? Transgender. You're moving beyond gender that was assigned to you. Or as we use it, cisgender. If your mind and body and your gender expression all kind of align for you. That's pretty awesome.
I mean, I wouldn't disagree, but there's some people who would say that it's not about necessarily if they fit the criteria. It's more about socially, once we start talking about trans being as broad as being about every gender that simply isn't cis, it doesn't kind of become so ballooned up with everything that just isn't cis that it needs to get subcategoried to where it doesn't really even have much of an identity on its own, to where you'll have to be like, well, I'm a gender-conforming trans person, or I'm a non-binary trans person, or I'm a gender-fluid trans... At a certain point, the trans person part doesn't even need to really be said.
I see what you're saying here, and I think in our society as we're growing up, you know, we are used to a very binary system, right? Like it's a man or a woman, especially the way that I definitely grew up in kind of a smaller town. You know, that was just it was just kind of the norm because you didn't know about other options, you know, and you know if you had feelings and you didn't have the resources around you, you know, maybe you couldn't talk about those kinds of things. So I see what you mean though because like I think you know common arguments include that somebody's just doing that for show or attention. Like they obviously have to fall on one side of like this very peaked roof, right?
Yeah.
And like it's got to roll on one side, right? So which one's it gonna be?
But also with that kind of, like, I wonder how. So there could be like a blending of motivations here for different trans individuals having different opinions about this subject, and I wonder how many trans individuals kind of adopt a cis outlook on gender so that they can almost in a sense be like, I'm playing by your rules, can I at least get like that I'm doing all the things you do, I'm agreeing with you on all the levels, you know. And that's, I think, like, you know, when you get some people who say, or like trans medicalists or things like that, where they say if you're gonna do it you need to go like all the way with all the surgeries and all the things and all the stuff. And you know, and I think some of that comes from them feeling like that's what they had to do to get respect, and if you're gonna get respect without doing that, that's almost like unfair in a sense.
Yeah, because anybody could just say whatever, right? And like that's just unfair. How dare somebody decide what is best for themselves and what makes them feel good and what makes them live a happy life, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Lead a happy life, not
Exa-
leave a happy
yeah,
life.
lead
Ideally,
a
if you're
happy life.
transitioning,
Yeah.
it's for the better, right?
well, I had a very happy life while I was cis, except for one problem, that it wasn't mine. Like, because I wasn't being myself.
Oh, I relate
So I
to
mean,
that.
I did leave a happy life, for a much better one. But I like, just to be totally lay my heart out here. I've been thinking for a while I might be non-binary, and that's been not super hard because I was like, you know, I've always been overtly trans, as I'll say, which is that I don't look like I adopt a binary kind of identity. I mean, I feel like only just lately have people been assuming my gender is feminine. I think that's because you know, the old boobaloos
Oh,
been doing it for me.
the
Yeah.
little
Yeah, you know, the mosquito bites or whatever you call them. But
pillows.
yes, if you're Austin Powers. But
I did just watch those movies.
that is a reference for all of the elder millennials. You're welcome. No, none of you watching. No, I hope there's a lot of millennials watching, so I don't feel so alone. No, what was I saying? Bring back on track. Okay, bring back on track. You can do this. We're doing so good.
Well, I think at this point, the real question is non-binary trans?
Well, so in one sense, like you said, yes. Nobody is born assigned a non-binary gender. So anyone who's non-binary had to transition away from whatever gender they were assigned at birth into this non-binary nebulous kind of gender category, which when you think about it is like, it's like being the trans of trans, almost like trans squared. Because now you're not only leaving your gender, you're leaving the concept of the binary behind completely. While other trans people may have left their gender, they still stayed within the concept of the binary because it was explainable to people. It was something cis people could kind of at least understand at some level, even if they resisted it. But once you start saying you're not, I mean, I know trans people who will say, I don't get the whole non-binary thing, and I don't agree with that statement, but these are people who aren't cis, who aren't a part of that kind of concept, but at some level, in some way, they've kind of, like, adopted that view, but also, that's the gender they want to be. They want to be a part of a binary, and is that any less or any less trans of a choice than non-binary? So, I mean, it just kind of comes to, yes, they're definitely trans, but also I could see how they are even almost equate it to like how in sexuality there's that bisexual erasure in between straight and gay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like you'd be cis or trans but a part of the binary. But if you're non-binary, it's almost like the bisexual gender. It's just like, it's a phase. It's not real. You're doing it for attention. These are all the things we've heard about bisexuality.
I feel like in a lot of, you know, at least our culture, you know, that we live in, we're so used to a sort of black and white or a red and blue kind of choice, right? Like a binary.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, it's got to be like right here, purple. No,
Or
it's
green.
It's,
what about things that are even like orange, clear?
they
like
just don't count in the grand scheme of things. You know, green, yellow.
something that's like a stoplight that goes between green, red, and yellow, alternates depending on the
Yeah.
time, and so it's like you got. But
are they just trying to drive? Is that it? And
no,
they're
gender
confused?
fluid is different.
Oh
people
right.
who-
Oh, okay,
so,
now I get it. Gender
um,
fluid.
So
You
and,
are seen.
and that's another thing. It's basically like let's talk about the gender iceberg. So the gender iceberg. So basically, at the very
Careful,
tip,
Marco.
you have like cisgender, which is the very tip, and then just at the surface of that, you have trans people who are like trying to pass as cis, who abide by the gender binary, and they're just right at that surface level. And then right below that, you might get like trans people who are a part of the binary but might not be able to get all of the medical interventions that other people might think that they should have, so then they might exist kind of just slightly outside the other people's conception of the normed binary. Also within there you might have a little bit of like, you know, like things that might not even be trans, like just cross-dressing or drag queens and things like that. And then below that you have like non-binary individuals and gender fluid individuals and things like that. And below that you have people like me who don't really know what we're doing or what we are, and we would just like it if everyone could be respected so that we could have a breath for a moment, for a break. But also I get why sometimes some people who are at that tip of the iceberg. Can we see that, Gigi? Is that coming in through? Yeah. So this is the gender iceberg. And I like how you put men on a slightly separate. I like that because it's a binary tip. I like that. It's a double tipped iceberg.
I'm a little biased. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
I'm first one to admit it.
No,
I'm
it's I appreciated that. But, what I was basically getting at is.
Show it again. Show it again.
So one more time,
Oh,
show it
okay.
again?
All right, here we go. Here you go. The gender iceberg, if you will.
Yep.
Where you have the binary, you know, size is
women
important.
and men, and this is just like a part that's like cis is the very top, and then just below that is trans, where like they just kind of connect, and then below that you go into kind of things that just kind of we would call it gender non-conforming, cross-dressing, things like that, but they still agree with the identity that they were assigned. Then below that you get like non-binary and gender fluid that's within there, and that's things that most
No particular order here.
and now you're starting to get to the point where people at the top, up here, even if they're trans, if they're part of the binary, start not wanting to be grouped in with those non-binary weirdos. And on one end, ow, hurtful, fuck you, we'll bleep that later. But on the other hand, I get it. I'm not like you. I'm not doing the same things you're doing.
It's a little dark down there.
You know, me and someone like, yeah, it gets pretty dark around. It gets murky waters once you start getting down to me.
It gets really dark sometimes, being trans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll talk about after the break, actually.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We have cool trans music. I censored myself there. I was going to say something like ass.
I feel like I need to get this in a nutshell pretty quick, right?
Yeah, sure. Nutshell is an Alice in Chains song, by the way.
Alright, so... Gigi McGee, like everybody, sorry. Just, I'm getting hit with all these facts that I can't remember. So we're gonna be pretty much Yeah, I know where that's where we're going to. That's the name of the thing. Has it been 15 minutes?
I think we're about there.
Where are we at on our time?
You're approaching 15 minutes.
All right, real quick, in a nutshell, just want to say about this whole non-binary business. It sucks. I think that trans should be an umbrella term for everyone who isn't cis, because everyone who isn't cis has a little bit less of a privilege of just being understood instantly by people, just at general, all around you when it comes to terming your gender. I think that also that trans people who abide by the binary, or what I would call cis, like seeming or cis appearing trans people, they also have a certain degree of that same privilege by people up to a certain point. And non-binary people don't. And honestly, and I know this kind of, I want to be included into the group that gets a little bit of that respect from cis people who are included as trans, because I feel pretty vulnerable. And also, though, I get how it seems like I'm the weird cousin tagging along to the road trip. But I guess you have to deal with it, but you could always call yourselves gender-conforming trans, I guess. Traditional gender trans. Come up with more labels, or at a certain point, you could just say you're cis. I mean, who's going to test your genetics, honestly? And that's my nutshell. And that's how I'm ending it.
Well, that's certainly a tough nut to crack. I'm sorry.
But
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm fine. I just had to try to wrap up that rant. And it's a we'll go into it more when we have more time, but it's basically, is non-binary trans? Yes. Would all trans people say that? No. Is that okay? I don't know. To be determined.
It's not okay, in my opinion.
But should the conforming trans people get their own group and their own word if they want it? And I don't know. We'll come back to that.
We can't wrap up that argument easily, but what we can do, which is super easy, is listen to good music on this program.
I need to listen to some heavy metal right now.
Yeah, some heavy metal. Get the feelings out.
Yes.
Rock it out. All right.
Yes.
I'm excited. You excited? Let's do this. This is the new song sent to us by The Image That You Claim, called Awakened. It's awesome. Check it out. We're going to take a break. Stick right here.
Awesome. All right, Gigi, play us out. I should put this back up, huh?
Yeah. Use this?
I got this.
All right.
Yeah. Wait, 60 seconds? Yeah. Oh, to the song.
Yeah.
Gotcha. 5 fingers or show 5 units and 10 fingers?
Yeah.
That's fine. You got 5.
4 viewers, right?
10 seconds will get 60 seconds.
Okay. Great. Feel free to ask.
I was going to. And we're at 40 seconds.
There you go.
Now the song's over in like 2 seconds.
Hey everyone! Surprise! It's us again.
We're back! You're tuning into the transmission if you're just tuning in. If you're still with us, thank you so much. The song we just heard, if you didn't catch us before, that was the song Awakened by the band The Image You Claim. They're based in LA, and that was sent to us from, I believe, their lead singer. She also plays guitar, and her name is Juniper Muse. She's on Twitter. Check her out. She has some music you can also find through that link.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for being back here. Thank you for sending us your music. If you want to get your music on the air and you're a trans musician, send us an email.
At giveustransmusic@gmail.com. That's giveustransmusic@gmail.com. I always feel like I'm on like a really basic cable commercial. It's like, do you have a used car? Just giveustransmusic@gmail.com.
And we'll get you on the air!
Yeah, so...
But, please?
Yeah.
We'd love to get your name out there. And honestly, if you're a transgender artist, person, if you produce any kind of media or art and you would like to showcase it on here, you have images, you have videos, you have anything like that you want to share, drop us a line, get in touch with us on our social media channels, and we'll work on getting you on here. We're planning on having some awesome special guests soon, just like Gigi McGee, to talk about their transgender journey and their transgender art.
And also just more art, more perspectives, more stories, more, so that people can have more to relate to. So people can know that they're not the only ones going through whatever they're going through and things like that. And also just to give some inspiration, like the bards we are, to all of you there.
Absolutely. You know, being transgender at the core of it, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome that we get to be who we really are, you know, even if it starts out on a different path. Right now, what we're going to talk about is this phenomenon that I think affects all of us, and it definitely affected me, called internalized transphobia. Have you heard of that?
Well, it's when the transphobe is you. Yeah, it happens. It's something that, I mean, I dealt with a lot, and especially when I was first coming out. So I think something that a lot of trans individuals have to deal with, especially if you're a little older, if you're raised in a less accepting or hospitable environment, you kind of pick up these messages and these ideas from toxic people, and you're too young to really defend them intellectually in your mind. They kind of get embedded, and they carry with you, and they don't really activate until you try to do something like, I don't know, wear a skirt or something.
You know, or, you know, let's say that you were raised as a girl and then you decide to be more tomboy, or you don't like having long hair, or any of those other, you know, kind of feelings or experiences. You want to do other things, and you're not allowed simply because of an arbitrary thing like your assigned gender and your parts and stuff. Well, you know, growing up in the 90s in a small town, even in California, there was a lot of that old school idea, you know, that sort of cowboy ideology, if you will, you know, and not just to pick on country folks, but, That's kind of how it was growing up for me. I was raised in an environment where men were men, and there was a certain characteristic that all men need to be, right, to be a good person. Basically, it became like certain qualities became kind of tied together, such as being proficient in certain skills, like maybe being handy with tools. Maybe you played baseball or football or were really good at that, or basketball or something like that. But even outside of those things, you just had a general, appearance and attitude towards how you interacted with other people that made people perceive you as like, oh, that is a manly
Like
thing.
the general cis standard for like clocking people as boy or girl.
Exactly. The more masculine you are, the more feminine you are, in accordance with this arbitrary thing that you're supposed to be and you're supposed to feel good about. It's a common system.
Yeah.
And sometimes when things happen in your life that you can't control, at a certain point, if you might be a trans person, I definitely, this is a little bit autobiographical here, biographical. That's how you say that word. Words are hard. But I grew up, with very much that attitude around me, where you made fun of girly men, as Schwarzenegger put it, and stuff, and that sort of attitude persisted. You couldn't, like you say, try on the dresses, or if you did, it was definitely out of jest, right? Like, growing up, I definitely, if people knew that I actually bought Britney Spears' CD as, like, my first album I ever bought myself, like, all my guy friends would have made fun of me back then, and I knew that. And you sort of bring that into yourself, and it becomes like this rigid structure where, even if you have these inclinations to step outside of it, you need to keep yourself inside because you're a man, right? Or you're whatever.
When do you think was the first visceral kind of explicit instance where you realized you had internalized transphobia, or you were doing something to yourself, or just had a concept, or were saying something to someone else that was like super transphobic, either like when you first started coming out, before you came out, or anything like that? Was there any kind of like anecdotes or moments you have where you can kind of like almost highlight how it was?
Well, you definitely. I don't know if I can point to a specific moment, but I definitely remember, like in my teens, there were several movies where, that person was transgender or a crossdresser or whatever, they were probably going to be the bad guy or like the butt end of a joke.
Yeah.
And so, oh, you definitely didn't want to be that, right? Or like those. You sort of make fun of other people that seem easier to make fun of than where you are based on your appearance or how old you are or whatever factor you feel like that pumps you up a little bit, and you sort of push that on other people even though you kind of don't want to, because it just makes you look better in your mind. Putting people down is never really okay, It always makes you look like the weaker person, in my opinion. But, back then, in a self-defense kind of, constant anxiety, have to do things this way, have to like only these things, or else people might question your manhood.
Yeah, it's kind of I'll prove I'm not gay by making fun of other people, calling them gay, kind of a defense mechanism.
And I grew up in the time too where calling something gay meant that it was like stupid, right? Well, or like it was dumb. It was dumb, Even though I didn't think gay people were dumb or anything like that, it was just something you called something.
Yeah, I remember, because fun fact, I'm a little older than Kat, but I remember when it meant both, like stupid and homosexual, and homosexuality was stupid and negative, and it was bad in some way, and like I know how like my transphobia got like seeded kind of in my brain as a child, but it didn't really dawn on me how it was still like affecting me even later in my life, until I kind of started realizing I was having these like judgments about mostly myself, but also other trans people. But it was like, if I especially when I was first transitioning.
Mm-hmm.
It was like if I wasn't what I would consider like passing or anything, or if I thought that what I was wearing was too, almost thought maybe I looked desperate, or if I basically would make fun of myself in my head because that's what I expected other people to say to me or think about me. And it was almost like a way to defend myself from that ridicule from other people. But the same types of concepts I was thinking, like, you know, like your chin's like too big, or your jaw's too strong, or you can see your Adam's apple, your hands are too big, or this or too that. I was just doing all the same things that transphobes would do to my picture online if I would have posted it or something. I was just preemptively attacking myself.
Yeah. No, I admittedly, when I finally asked myself the question, and I kind of broke down the first layer, of internalized transphobia, and I just started to ask, like, well, can I? Am I allowed and stuff? I definitely found that as I was discovering myself was, I didn't, frankly, you when it's all very new to you, some things just seemed like so outside of where you hope to be that you're like, oh gosh, I hope that,
Yeah.
whatever, or like, oh, I'm not that type of person.
I'm not that kind of gay. I'm not that kind of trans.
And that is a really shitty attitude to have.
But
and
I
even
had
when
that
you
at
know
first.
it,
Like
I did too.
And it was. Here's a. Sorry to cut you off, but here's a quintessential to very encapsulate the moment. Like, I knew I was trans. I just started to come out, but the thing something I had said to someone when they'd said, "Oh, do you think you're going to look like a girl? Do you think you're going to look like a cis girl?" was, I said the phrase, "Oh, I know I'm not going to fool anyone. I know that people are always going to know from a glance what's going on in my pants, regardless of what I'm wearing, even if it's a skirt, not pants." But that phrase, "I'm not going to fool anyone,"
Right.
was just really telling of how, because, like, before I knew about myself, I just knew about the concept. I knew about the concept through the way cis people would normally learn about it. The internet and pornography. So it was not
like you do.
It was not a very respectable environment or a place that respected people. So I wasn't being raised on the kind of messages or outlooks or opinions that was like the most respectable. So I would say words about myself and other people that would be derogatory, and I won't repeat right now. But that's very much kind of like what I mean. Like, I still had a lot of the same opinions that a trans would have. I just happened to be trans.
Yeah, definitely. And I found myself, judging other trans people and, definitely judging myself very harshly. There was about a 2-year window between when I seriously started to question my gender and I actually did start hormones. And a lot of people go a lot quicker than that, but I was working through a lot of serious life stuff and a lot of serious personal stuff, and the transphobia was definitely part of that too. And, I guess what I would say is that, going through this transgender journey, that's been like a product of me becoming myself and leading to a happier life. Transitioning didn't make me a happier person, but it led me toward the kind of happiness that I wanted to have in my life. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a magic band-aid for me. There was a lot of things that needed to be, dealt with. But as I was able to deal with them and in doing so become who I really am and the woman you see before you now. So.
Aww.
It feels good to say.
Yeah, no. But what I was going to say is because I've met parents of trans individuals who have transitioned, and the parents will be talking to me because I kind of like try to help, like, and counsel people and try to help people all get along, and they'll say things like, but they're still so unhappy or still have all these problems. Like, it's not the end-all be-all to happiness. They still had other problems. It's just that now this one thing, their gender, isn't a problem, and gives you the ability to focus on those other problems, because now you're actually being yourself, and your problems matter because they affect you, not this person you're pretending to be.
And what's really funny is that I find that I'm able to tackle regular problems so much better. Whether it's, somebody cutting me off in traffic or, spilling a little bit of coffee or, however minute or major because I don't have all that pent up energy in my own internalized transphobia, keeping me like locked into how I think I should be, I'm able to be myself. And in doing so, I want to be the best version of myself I can. So even though nobody's perfect, because you don't have all that unconsciousness and that internalized transphobia, you're able to be yourself more and be who you really are.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm still working on my internalized transphobia, to be honest. Like, it's not.
Sure. It's a process, right? It is for me too.
Yeah, like I'm still. I'll find myself not really wanting to fully explain or tell people or give people updates about how my gender identity has been changing because I don't want to be a hassle or I don't want to be a bother, and that's still very much a transphobic kind of view to have to just assume that's how everyone else is going to see it. So I don't know. I'm still working on it. We're all works in progress, and we'll all get there one day, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we'll all get there together. If you have a topic that is important to you and you would like us to discuss it, drop us a line. We're always looking for episode ideas. If you want to send in your artwork to be on the transmission, whatever that art is, we specialize in music.
But we can put something up on the screen. We'll figure out how.
Mm-hmm.
We can, you get a video, we'll clip it in or whatever, as long as it's, Twitch appropriate and all that jazz. It's the internet, you never know. And just give us any creative outlet you have so that we can just show everyone how creative you are and we can just all celebrate art together.
Yeah, and that's really what we're about. We're working through all these transgender issues together, of course, but as much as we want to be a resource here for you too, we also just want to showcase what's awesome about being transgender, and there's a lot to celebrate.
And next week, I promise it'll be light and fun and fresh and all the great things, and I think that's about our time, though, tonight.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for watching. We're going to be having one last song lead us out. Before that, I just want to say I love you all. Thank you so much. You mean the world to me. And if you have anything you want to say to us, even if it's just a hello, we always have giveustransmusic@gmail.com. We're on Facebook at The Transmission on Facebook.
Because I'm old and stuff.
We're also on Twitter at...
Because she's not.
Yeah, the Twitter handle is at Transmusic Radio, and then our Twitch thing is Transmusic Show. And so will you say the last song we're going? I forgot what it was.
Absolutely. To lead us off, it's going to be Thea Riley's Good to Go. Thank you again for joining us. We'll be back here next Monday, 8-ish p.m. Pacific time.
8:30. 8:30. Let's do 8:30.
We'll be here next Monday night, and we sure hope you will be too. Thank you.
Bye.